Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So we are here together to talk about the relationship between the masjid and the hospital and the role of the community and the imams in bringing comfort to those who are suffering from our family members and friends and others. So I wanted to talk to you, Imam Abdullah, about this point. What is it that you see the role of the masjid being in terms of helping and aiding people that have relatives in the hospital that maybe are terminally ill or other than that in general?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. In the name of Allah, may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, and all those who follow him to their judgment. SubhanAllah, the number one is the place, right? The hospital. The relationship between the hospital and the masjid. Right, the hospital, you come and you look at people coming in and out from different walks of life to get service, right, to get some need, and that's the same concept of the masjid itself. People will come from random different ways of life, seeking something, seeking some treatment, right? And I think that's important for us to keep that in mind. To keep that in mind, to the importance of service, right? The importance of facilitating for people when they come into these spaces seeking some help. It's important to look at the human side of it, of families, so many people in different capacities are coming with different needs. So you have the patients, they have their needs. You have the nurses, they have their needs. You have the families of the patients, or you have those that lost a loved one and they have their needs. And then you have those who are still waiting for a response. They have their needs. But one beautiful aspect of the hospital, for example, is that there's a chapel. There's a place where we can find refuge and pray and worship, right? Seeking that spiritual help. So I think it's important for us to value the hospitals as we value the masajid, and as we also value the sincere intent to serve those who are in need. And those who are in need are not just financial. It's not, many times we talk about those who are in need, we take two aspects. One is those who are in need because there's a financial constraint, or those that are in need because they're being oppressed, right? But there's also those who are in need, who are going through a mental, traumatic crisis and experience, right? And how do we empathize and care for those who have those kind of struggles? Sometimes they're on their own. They're on their own, struggling, trying to figure things out. And we have to at least have that empathy that we don't always have to know what's going on. That we should also leave, room for silence, and also room for us to help them through a different means, not by the acquisition of information, but by dua, supplication, well-wishing, patience, checking on them. How are they doing? How are they feeling? Did they eat? Did they sleep? Did they take care of themselves? these basic necessities, that should be our concern. Sometimes we're thinking about, a person who's sick, and we disregard even those that are taking care of them. So we have to ensure that we empathize, and that we try to be value the places.
Yeah.
For this.
I think that I wanted to hit on this point that you were mentioning about the issue of information. We necessarily don't need to know all of the details of what's going on with the patient. We have to respect their privacy and the family and so on and so forth. But families should feel comfortable to be able to inform the masjid that they have a loved one in the hospital. That way we know what's going on. That way we can be a support. That way we can make dua. That way we can visit. That way people can help and support. Because a lot of times what happens is that one family member is taking the whole burden. Other people are working, or family members, they can't come. And so that person, they begin to be so stressed out, and they begin to go through struggles. And at the same time, some people, when it comes to the issue of hospitalization, they begin to maybe question, like, what is the meaning of suffering? What is the meaning of life? Why is Allah testing me in this way? All of that type of stuff is normal. It happens. But we have to learn how to deal with this issue of, suffering and pain and sickness and even death. There's a lot of times death comes our way. And none of those things are easy. By any means, none of those are easy. But the relationship between the masjid and the hospital is one that should be very tight and connected. Because after all, we have so many people in our community. Some are elderly, some are sickly already. We have so many people in our community that the masjid becomes that place which is supportive. That's the reality at the end of the day. That the masjid is a place that is supposed to be there to offer support on multiple levels. And also, to be honest with you people, sometimes we have to face the fact that we may be in a situation where we should be preparing for a person's janazah. And we need to, there always have to be family members that are not caught up in the moment of the suffering and the pain, but they're thinking ahead what needs to be done to facilitate for the family and to make the time in the hospital easy. And some family members, we know that they may be in a situation where they may need to have already the funeral preparations, preparations for the janazah already in place. And so with the masjid knowing what's going on, we get a heads up. And then we're able to be there for the people. We're able to prepare properly, and do things in such a way that they can go smooth. When we're in the dark, we can't really be of a service, and people feel that they're on their own. And we wanna kind of break that mentality. Like I said, we don't need to know people's details, in a way which violates people's privacy, but to have a general understanding is important. And the relationship between the hospital and the masjid should be one that's very clear, that the masjid does have a relationship to those who are in the hospital. It's not just that you're on your own at that point. But it's something that we need to develop more and more, because a lot of times in our community, we're very private about these things. And some of our men, they don't want anybody to know that they're in the hospital or whatever may be. So they deprive themselves of dua, and they deprive themselves of support, and they deprive themselves of friendship and brotherhood. And those things are necessary for, in reality, there's a lot of studies on that family and friends, is important for healing. Now, we don't want to also crowd people, or sometimes we have to give people their space. And that's something that we have to respect as well, that people need their space. But there should be some communication. Do you have anything to say before we close?
So one of the important points is we mentioned the role of the masjid, right, and the role of the imams. It's extremely important to know that the communities need to ensure that these services are there for those that are sick, right? Many times, patients they call, they contact, they need help, they need a prayer, they need somebody to visit, and and there is no accessibility. There is no accessibility towards there is there is no there, you wanna Sheikh, you wanna um, there is no uh, Bismillah. Pobrecita. Just wait, let the I want that. How far?
Sorry, there's a car blocking the handicap ramp, so we had to ask them to move so that the lady can. So one of the ladies that was pushing her husband into the hospital so she can go in.
That's what we're talking about, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about like those simple things where there is a ramp for a wheelchair to come, and we insensitively, it's like my dad said, uh, insensitively, we lack the compassion to even think that somebody needs that ramp. You know what I'm saying? Like that lady was there trying to take her husband or relative, to the building, but she has to wait for a person in a car having another valuable conversation, right? Uh, to move, right? And they're both in need. Both in need. The person, is maybe a nurse, and the other person, is a patient. So, but these are like regular day-to-day things that are happening, right? And that's why these services are needed, like the services of the pastoral care, being available, and also valuing the places, valuing the places, the masjid and the hospital.
And then sometimes we don't know how to manage the hospital system, or we don't know what hospital is better. And because we have resources in the masjid and we have doctors and so on and so forth, and we have people, we can have those discussions as to what is a better place to go or how to manage a problem or whatever. Sometimes we need that support. But in any event, the relationship between the masjid and the hospital is one of support, and it's one of facilitating for people and being there by their side in their struggles and alleviating for people. And it's one of the rights of the Muslims that they be visited while they're sick. And so with that, we end. Assalamu alaikum.